everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Sam Healy. Welcome to the Dash Tower.
This is a monstrosity of a game we're reviewing today called Soul Raiders, which actually is meant to look like a book, although you really shouldn't store it like this. You
I
should
don't
store
think
it
you can
flat.
call that a book. You have to call that a tome. That is a tome.
So here's the thing. Soul Raiders is by Marc Andre, who's best known for Splendor.
Woo-hoo-hoo, one of my favorite games of all time.
I don't think you were expecting the Splendor guy to make essentially a adventure dungeon crawl type game.
Right.
And the reason I was not thinking it either is because this was kickstarted 3.5 years ago. So it's finally come out in this giant box here. And so this is one of those games that kind of went in knowing almost nothing about. And in fact, as we opened it, it didn't even look like it had a lot of components.
I think
when
it
we
does.
started.
Yes, when it started, yes. The prologue does not give you a whole lot to play
Well, it
with.
wasn't even that. The prologue was just everything was compactly packed. And
there's
I thought,
there's a lot of stuff in this box.
there is. It's a prologue in 3 chapters, and you play through each chapter. And I guess you can pause at points during these chapters because the chapters are pretty long. And it's an adventure-style game where you have a deck of cards and you're a bunch of, well, Soul Raiders who...
Warriors. That's what Soul Raiders were. They're like these super cool, nice... think The Witcher.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in a second. Let's take a look at how the game plays, and we shall be back. When you play this game, each person is going to have one of these heroes. So when you take a hero, you'll get the hero board here, which tells you that when you take certain actions, you'll get some bonuses here. So Brunhild, they also come with a deck of cards, gets +2 on actions with traps and perception. They get +2 on that. Brunhild comes with 2 decks of cards. You have an upgrade deck of cards, which you'll set aside, and then you have your actual deck of cards, which you will shuffle. Over the course of the game, on a player's turn, they're going to have a hand of cards. Usually it's 4 cards, but as the game goes by, your hand can go down. And you'll see most of the cards have numbers in the corners. So when I take an action, let's say I want to take a move action, I can spend these 2 cards to do a 4 move action. But actually, because it's a move action, this one gives me +2 per action card. So if I play these together, this would be an 8 move. If I play these together, this would be 5 +4, 2 for each action card, +2 for each movement card. So this would be 5 + 8. This would be a 13 move. So in your deck, you're going to have movement and combat cards. These will add bonuses to combat, and magic spells, where you can use it as this 2 for an action, or you can spend it for the spell here. This inflicts wounds on all enemies with a combat value of 3 or less in this location. And there are ones that let you put portals out. Here, all my attack bonuses are now move bonuses. So each character, and every character has one that will turn you invisible. And that matters a lot in this game because you have your miniature, but you also have your invisible miniature. And when you're invisible, enemies can't see you, they can't fight you. Now the game comes with a prologue, which I'm showing here. I'm trying not to spoil too much. And then 3 chapters. Each chapter, and the prologue is a much smaller one, will come with a bunch of these cards here. And it will tell you how you win. You need to find a victory condition, a red one, but these black stars are like extra victory conditions. You're trying to get to a certain amount of that. Then there's a big introduction, and then you're going to be at various locations. Meanwhile, your whole party is set here, and you have health, but this health is for your party in general. Every round, you're going to take a certain amount of damage. This keeps you going. It keeps knocking you down, depending on the threat level. There's things that are going to move the threat level up. If the threat level gets all the way to the top, you lose. If you take enough damage to go around and pass 0, you'll keep going, but then this marker moves over 1, which means you have fewer cards in your hand. You start with 4 cards, but go down to 3, then down to 2, and then eventually you will lose the game. That way. So if either of these markers hits here, you will lose. Here's some event cards that are specific to the prologue. At certain times, they will tell you to turn them over. During the game, you're going to have lots of locations on the board. So for example, if I'm on this location here, all the players will go, and they can take turns kind of in any order they want. You'll look at here to see what actions you can do. This says if any hero, whether they are or not, are present in this location, have 15. Well, I don't even know what that means right now. I do know what it means, but I mean, you don't have 15. Flip this card to side B, which will change something on it. It actually opens up a new spot for you to go. So this shows some actions. I can move to other locations. I can spend 4 movement to go to location 2, 8 movement to go to location 9, 3 movement to go to location 7. These green arrows means that if I'm engaged with enemies, they will not come with me. They will follow me if I go to that one. I can also take the quick glance through the door on the left, and I just have to do an action. That's 3 or more value with that perception. If I do so, I'll draw card 1. So you're going to run into various different locations, all with an A or B side. Many locations, when you come in them, will give you enemies. There's a certain amount of enemies that players will draw, which again is determined by the threat level over here. And these will come sometimes before every adventurer. You'll have these enemies. To fight an enemy, you simply need to do damage to them equal to the amount in their shields. So this one needs 2, this needs a 5 and a 4. Why is this 5 and 4 instead of 9? Because at the end of all the players going, any enemies in front of them will deal damage for each shield they have. And they also have other things here, like this guy's symbol here means you have to hit him before anyone else. And this guy here says all the shields count as 2 hits when they hit you. And when you hit these guys, when you attack them, again, you're discarding cards from your hand to get bonuses, to get enough strength to beat the different shields that are there. This one gives you a token, a heroic token. You can spend 3 of those to add the top card of this pile in your deck. You can skip it and add more. Some of these cards also will give you potions that you can use, and these cards are better, and also you have more cards in your deck as you go through and add them to your hand. But you need to get 3 of these to do that. You can also get 2 to simply, you can spend 2 of these to simply draw a card off the top of your hand into your pile. So there's locations you're finding, and all sorts of symbols happen in these locations. Sometimes you're attacked, sometimes you see things, and I don't really want to spoil that too much. There are also, while there are this random pile of monsters that you'll fight everywhere. All sorts of monsters, some will follow you, doesn't matter what the path you are. Some cancel your magic abilities. Like this guy here, you can't use any of your magic spells when you're around him. If you're invisible, you're now visible. Some make the threat level come up. And there's like the same 4 basic enemies. But there's also going to be specific enemies. Somebody you might say, draw enemy 7. Well, now you got to fight this guy here, who's a pretty tough cookie. Some things will tell you to draw a specific card. It might say, draw card 6. And you read this, and it will say, hey, flip location 5 to its B side. So that's kind of a general gist. You're just kind of going through, trying to figure out where that red star is. You might find it early. You don't have to quit the round, the chapter. Like, for example, in Chapter 1, we found it pretty early. But we could keep going. We could keep moving around and look for more black stars because that's how you score. If you lose, you basically just go back to your last save point and you can start again from there. And that's kind of a general way of how the game plays. Okay, so let me start with a couple negatives. Okay, well, first of all, I think the production is very well done. Mm-hmm. It's too big, but it's very well done.
Yes.
There's a couple problems I have with production. There's a huge problem. The rulebook's terrible. All right, the rulebook has really important information after they tell you how to end the game. So, like, there's like a leveling up section at the end of the rulebook, and I was like, well, I don't need to read that because I'm not leveling up.
Yeah.
You can level up during a campaign. During a chapter.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing.
Yes.
And also just, they would talk about this concept and this. I just was bouncing all over the place. But I made it through. In fact, we missed we played on super hard mode because we missed a rule.
And we won. No, we didn't.
Well, we won one thing. We lost the prologue twice. Yes. We're like, what are we doing wring?
Exactly.
We were playing on way too hard of a mode.
Yes.
The issues I have are... the fact that it's big. This box is just too big. The setting is really neat.
Yes.
The artwork on the cards and the world, even though the enemies are a little generic, there's goblins and bugbears and whatever, the world is pretty neat.
Yes.
The characters themselves feel nameless to me. I don't like the art of the characters at all. It's very generic.
Like raiders.
The people we are playing.
Yes.
They feel very generic. I can't really tell the difference between them much. They have a different deck and slightly different abilities, but it doesn't feel that different. And there's cards repeated from one deck and another. Yes. I just felt kind of like
Well, you're all pretty much the same kind of character, but you have slight nuances in what your character can do as compared to somebody else. And so, yeah, you're going to feel kind of vanilla. And we were reading through that other book that kind of explained a lot of the backstory to each of the characters.
Yeah, but that's an extra book that doesn't come with the game normally.
Exactly. So they did put a lot of singularity, I guess, into the backstories of the characters, but the characters as they are in the game, there's not a whole lot of difference.
You're all people who run around with swords. You can all turn invisible, and you all have magic spells.
Yeah.
Now, what spells you have
is slightly
different, and that's going to change. And for some people, that might not be a bad thing,
right?
But I was like, man, I wish there was a little bit more diversity there.
And we didn't play through all of the chapters, so maybe as you get into those other decks that you're purchasing cards from during the campaigns, you'll start to feel some of that divergence.
I looked, though, and they were just like better cards.
Yeah.
Now, going through this, I'm trying to think of what to compare this to. It really feels like a point-and-click adventure and a computer game to some degree.
Yeah.
Like, I'll go here, you go there. There's a lot of symbols, although I will say as you play, the symbols get easier and easier to understand what they are. But it really almost has a Time Stories feel to it.
It very much does feel that way.
Because you go through, if you lose, they're like, like I said, we lost on hard mode. They're like, well, now you have these memories that you have. Just go through it again. And so I'm like, well, don't go in that spot because I know what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Or over there is a key.
Yep.
I remember that. So if you could do that, and the chapters are huge.
Very huge.
And in fact,
Chapter 1 has...
We stumbled on like the winning thing by accident.
Yes.
Because you really don't have a lot of... You're kind of like, go look at that. Go over here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're having to spend movement out of your hand to go do these things. So there is an economy of movement and of cards in the game that I think is really cool.
Yeah, I like the card system a lot.
Because you can use, even though this is a movement card, you can still use its value to attack with it, but then you have less movement to go with later on, and vice versa. I can use an attack card to move but I don't get the bonus at the bottom of the card, and I now don't have that attack card if a couple of bad guys show up where I go.
It's a little mathy. You're never really rolling dice. You're spending these cards, but it's also not hard, and you can pull off amazing things if you get certain combos together. The game's a little itchy on the...
Itchy?
I don't know what the word is. It's like a little smudgy on working together or apart. It kind of... We were split, but after a while, I was like, it's just so much easier, I think, to stay together.
Yeah.
Although then you're both like, let's both move here.
Right.
Let's both do this.
Yeah.
If you can split and go in different directions, but then you might need each other's help or whatever, and then it slows the game down because Sam's like, okay, I'm going to fight these guys and go here, and I'll be like, okay, I'll do this. Mm-hmm. But I guess you can't do that, and the game doesn't penalize you too much for it.
No, it doesn't.
With the exception of, and it's the other small problem of production, once you start putting out the locations, you're covering the entire state of Delaware.
Yes.
There are so many locations.
A lot of stuff. And they're big location cards. They're, I don't know, I can't...
Like a 4x6?
Yeah,
something like that.
They're slightly bigger than that. But they're big cards. We were playing it on one of those plastic Lifetime Costco tables or whatever, and
we just had cards on top of cards on top of cards.
Yeah, we were like, forget this. We're not going to be able to do that because we still had our player boards and our decks and all that kind of stuff, and it's a super table hog. But I think it also helps with a little bit of an immersion factor when that's happening.
It helps make the place you feel very vibrant.
Yes.
Like we went here and we did this. And also, the stories are pretty epic.
The stories are cool.
I mean, like, Chapter 1, you're like...
Well written, too.
Boom!
Yeah.
This gigantic creature falls in and you're like, do we fight the creature or do we get out of dodge?
Yes.
I can tell you the answer.
We get out of dodge. Yeah, we get out of dodge.
But I like that a lot. And also, this game does a very clever thing where there's a few locations in each of the chapters that you can switch. There's envelopes with some locations, and you can switch a few locations, which will change things.
And
I haven't got to that. So you go back and play through the chapter again.
I think there were like 5 or 6 different cards.
Yeah, I don't know how
that you could switch out.
I don't know how much that changes.
I would imagine they're at pivotal places.
So
I would imagine. I don't know for sure.
So this was a hard one to recommend. I don't know if this is going to retail or not. You know, if you're going to have to buy. This is the terrible retail product.
I would imagine this is not going to go to retail.
But there is a smaller version of this, I know, because there's 6 characters in this, and there's only 4, which I think is fine, because like I said, they're not that different.
Yeah.
4 characters, and I think this game could have been put into a smaller box.
Well, if they did
Cut
a
the
retail
minis,
version,
do standees.
if they did a retail version, I could probably 100% suggest that you at least take a look at it.
So, but taking that out of the equation, for me, this is a game I very much enjoyed. I grew into liking it. At first, I was like, I don't know about this card system.
Right.
Oh, this is hard.
Yeah.
Oh, this. But then when we started finding really cool stuff,
Right. Well,
new and like the story was getting to me. I was enjoying the story a lot.
yeah, we did have that thing with Time Stories where we started almost fatigue is the word that comes to mind. You don't want to go through all of those places again just to get to where you know you need to go. You don't want to spend all of that time. And as we played the game more, we found that this game isn't like that. We found that it was less and less like what we thought it was.
It gives you a lot more breathing room than I thought.
Yes.
If you play the prologue, it teaches you how to play the game, but it's not the game.
Yeah.
The game is the chapters.
Yep.
And so I also love the invisibility mechanism.
Yes.
Every character has that. You go invisible. That's a neat thing, especially when you have that other miniature for it.
It is a spell that you have to play out of your hand, though. You can't just say, "Hey, I'm going invisible." So
sure, but
you
if there's
do
a
have
bunch
to
of
wait for
enemies
that
there,
card.
you're like,
I'm out. You can't see me.
So, yeah, so I think this game's going to appeal to a lot of people. If you like that choose your own adventure type stuff, this gives you're on a thing, 4 different directions to go.
Yep.
Something else you can do. And then the 2-sided nature of the boards,
Yep.
it works really well. I'm giving it an 8.
8.
I find it to be very enjoyable. It's not going to be for everybody. And we played it at 2. I was happy with that. I wouldn't go
was too.
higher than 2.
And it doesn't make you play multiple characters either. That I'm aware of.
It scales really well.
Yeah.
Because you draw enemies. In fact, I wouldn't mind playing this solo, other than it's a huge table hog. And when I play a huge table hog, I'm like, why am I doing this solo again? But with 2, it was really, really entertaining. Right. So 8 out of 10 for me.
I'm right there. This is a solid 8 out of 10. It's something that I could definitely recommend to someone that I know likes this kind of game because it does what it does very well. I was a huge fan of Time Stories back in the day. And even when the other guys were getting more fatigue from playing through the game, I was still enjoying it more than they did. So I think I enjoyed Time Stories more than Tom or Z did. This one definitely scratches that same itch, so it's definitely down my alley. I'm going to give it an 8 as well.
There you go, folks. That's Soul Raiders. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Sam Healy.
And now we're going invisible.
See you guys on the flip side.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.